This is Royce with Viking Wax Press and the Alternative Football Network. This video will recap the 2025 Week 1 Showboats game and predict the outcome of this Saturday's matchup between the Showboats and the DC Defenders in DC. First things first though, the biggest news out of Memphis since we learned Coach Whisenhunt was leaving the team for personal reasons less than 2 weeks ago, Coach Whisenhunt is now returning to assume the coaching duties for Week 2. I have no idea what personal things he had to handle, but apparently he doesn't mess around in taking care of business. He will assume play calling duties for the offense, which should make for a better game to watch. Which brings me to Game 1. I figured the Showboats would lose in a defensive battle, and my predicted score was pretty close. They did lose, but the Panthers put up more points than I predicted. The Showboats' defense wasn't entirely at fault, though. Although they did have several missed tackles, they will need to clean those up going forward. The biggest problem was the very inconsistent offense. Game 1 play caller TJ Verneri seemed to change QBs just when one on the field got good momentum, and that made for a stuttering, sputtering offense, especially on the ground where the Showboats were held to just 69 yards rushing on 24 carries. Granted, this was the first UFL game for the two running backs used by the Showboats, Deneric Prince and Jalen Jackson, but I can only assume that Coach Whisenhunt's play calling will lead to a smoother offense that give both of those guys a better chance to show what they can do. Speaking of showing what they could do, Jonathan Adams stepped up in a big way to fill the shoes of injured Dawood Davis and proved he is capable of being a WR1 in the UFL. In fact, he leads the UFL in receiving yards after one game. Some minor support came from the other starters, the tight ends and the running backs and the bench, but no one besides Adams had more than 2 catches. Again, consistent play calling should help both the ground and the air game. The experienced Panthers showed us how keeping the majority of your team intact during the offseason can lead to a team who gels well even at the start of the season. Bryce Perkins had several heroic moves in his touchdown run, and Samson Nakua caught a defense-splitting TD pass that made the Showboats look like Swiss cheese. While they were also disruptive on defense, the Panthers allowed the Showboats to stick around, and the game was still within reach for the Boats until very late in the fourth quarter. The Showboats' offensive line is vastly improved over last year. How do I know? They completely skunked last year's Defensive Player of the Year, behemoth Breland Speaks. Sure, Frank Genda and Kenny Walekas had solid defensive outings for the Panthers, but limiting Speaks to 0 tackles and 0 sacks is a big feather in the cap, or helmet, of the O-line. In the end, the final score was Panthers 26, Showboats 12, not too far from my 23-16 prediction. Now for Week 2, where the Showboats head to DC to face a blitz-happy defense and a stand full of fans sidetracked by putting cups in cups. The Defenders shocked the world by beating the Stallions in Week 1, and that may seem like a problem going in for the Showboats, but it's not as bad as you'd think. For one, we have our coach back. His play calling experience alone will immediately improve the team. His leadership will boost confidence. His halftime speech will re-energize. His primary concern will be breaking the blitz, which means giving the QBs the green light to run and dump quick passes to tight ends Chris Pierce, Ryan Izzo, and J.J. Wilson, and running backs Prince and Jackson, as well as slot receiver Kwame Lassiter. I expect all of those guys to have increased output in Week 2. When he played for the Maulers in 2023, QB Troy Williams showed us he can run when called upon. He'll need to lace them up tight and get back into that zone on Saturday. Same with E.J. Perry when he's in. If the Showboats can overcome the blitz, I believe they have a chance to win this game. Yes, they're outmatched at most positions, but this defense should be able to pressure Defenders QB Jordan Teamu into throwing at least 2 picks. If they can turn those into points, there is hope. The Defenders' Week 1 win made you think that Teamu had a great game. He didn't even connect on 50% of his passes. He's not likely to throw for 211 yards against Memphis like he did against Birmingham. That said, Teamu is definitely a better QB with running back Abram Smith in the game. Abram leads all defenders in PFF pass block rating with an 81.8. DC defenders, that is. Abram should hinder Jalen Allen's bull rush just enough to allow DC to get onto the scoreboard, but maybe not. Listen to this clip on Jalen's bull rush tactics.
Jalen, what'd you see on that play?
I just saw new tackle, new opportunities. We in the M, baby. We gotta turn up.
What move did you decide to use?
Boom, hey, straight through.
Bull rush move. All right, what's gonna be the next move when you get that new tackle?
It's gonna be a bull, but don't tell nobody.
You already told somebody, Jake.
Yes, sir. Let's do it. Members in the building.
Yes, sir.
And that leads me to my Week 2 prediction. I project a tight, low-scoring game with both defenses stifling the opponent. Turnovers will outnumber TDs. DC wins the battle of the trenches 14-11. But don't tell nobody. Shh. Do you agree with my predicted outcome? If not, why not? Tell me in the comments. Stay tuned throughout the season as I cover the Memphis Showboats for the Alternative Football Network. Follow my profile on X and Facebook and click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more football content, including my helmet rankings of over a dozen different pro leagues. Thanks for watching. This is Royce with Viking Wax Press and the Alternative Football Network. God is good, y'all. Take care.